The following program is produced by Londonderry residents. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily the views and opinions of the LACTV staff or its volunteers, and should not be considered an endorsement by CTV 20 or its staff and volunteers.
Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to another session of Concord Conversations. We've been doing these now for a couple of months to try and help the citizens of Londonderry understand what happens at the Capitol up in the, Concord. And this morning our guest is Senator Sharon Carson. I've known Sharon for a number of years. She served, I think it was 4 terms in the House, and she's in her 4th term in the Senate,
No.
all right?
I don't know. It's got to be probably about the 7th, I think.
So
7th or 8th.
she's been in the Senate, and she's been our senator for a number of years. And so this morning she's our main guest, and so what we're hoping to do this morning is to help you understand, how the Senate works and what happens in the Senate. And I'd also like to point out that she is the Senate Majority Leader, which is one of the highest positions you can attain in the Senate other than the Senate President. With that, Sharon, maybe you'd like to do a little bit of introduction about yourself and your family, and then we can get into some concrete questions.
Oh, sounds good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Carson. I live at 19 Tocano Drive here in Londonderry. I've lived here for almost 34 years, and I consider Londonderry to be my home. I've been married to the same person for 45 years, and I have 2 daughters. One lives at home with us because of physical disabilities, and my other daughter is a captain in the United States Army and lives in Maryland. In the Senate, I chair Senate Judiciary, and I am the vice chair of the Executive Departments and Administration Committee. As Speaker Packer said, I also am the Majority Leader for the Senate. So I hope everyone can recognize that it's spending a lot of time in Concord, which for me is business as usual because I usually do anyway. I'm on a number of committees, other committees and commissions outside of the legislature. I serve on 2 of the governor's task force. I'm also the president of the New Hampshire Foster and Adoptive Parents Association. So again, just really busy doing all kinds of things to help the people of the state of New Hampshire.
So from that, I understand you need more to do? I apologize for a minute. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I am Representative Sherman Packard. I'm the Speaker of the House. We have Doug Thomas, who's the Vice Chairman of the Science and Tech Committee, and we have Tom Dolan, who's Chairman of the Special Committee on Committees, trying to eliminate some of the ones that we don't need. So why don't we get into maybe you can explain a little bit, Sharon, how the Senate works that's different than the House.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the biggest differences is the size of the Senate. We have 24 members, and the House, of course, as we know, have 400. So I think it's all part of that system of checks and balances in our government that exists. And we tend to work together more than anything else because there's only 24 of us. We have the opportunity to really get to know each other, and we tend to work together more, I think, than the House does, just of the number. It's easier to get 24 people to say yes or no than it is for 400. But we all work. We are all on a variety of different committees as opposed to the House, where you're usually just on one committee. We tend to have more meetings than the average state representative. We get to meet with agencies all across the state. So I just think the work in a lot of respects is the same, but it's also more intensive and a lot more work per person than the House.
Yeah, in the past, there has been some some contention between the House and the Senate.
Mhm.
You know, we haven't always got along together, but I can tell you, in the past few terms, especially in my 2 terms now as Speaker, we have a tremendous working relationship with the Senate President and the Senate, probably better than I've seen in all the years that I've been up there. And it's comforting as to how much we've agreed upon and how much we've been able to get done. Is there anything in particular, bills, that you'd like to talk about, Sharon, that might be of interest to the citizens of Londonderry?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we can talk about. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for your leadership of the House. I think you are exactly correct, that it is the tone of the leaders of both bodies that determine what that relationship is going to look like. And because of Senator Chuck Morse and Senator Jeb Bradley and yourself, you have set that tone, that working relationship that has allowed the House and the Senate to come together on many issues that are really going to benefit the people of the state of New Hampshire. So I'd like to thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Sharon.
There's a number of things that are going on. Of course, we can talk about the budget, which quite frankly is historic. We can talk about water issues here in our community, things that have passed that are going to help people. We can talk about the new youth detention facility that's going to be built in Hampstead. So that we all came together to work on. And then there's a lot of smaller little bills, I think, that we could probably talk about, that most people aren't just aware of the things that are happening, but I think those things are really key. Those are really big issues.
Yeah, I think the budget we passed was historic. I think you passed it, if I'm correct, 24-0.
Yes.
The Senate passed it 24-0, and in the House, and nobody can remember if this has ever happened, we were able to pass the budget by a voice vote over to the Senate, which it's unheard of. And then, we sat down with, Senate leadership, yourself and the Senate President, and we continued to work together for the whole time that the Senate had the budget. And when the Senate sent us the budget back for concurrence, instead of going to committee of conference like it's always been done, we were able to concur with the Senate budget because we'd been working so closely together, the whole time the Senate had the budget. And that, again, was unheard of. Nobody can tell us when or if that has ever happened again. Mm-hmm. So I think, the relationship that we have had has proven to be extremely helpful to the citizens and for what we were able to put into that budget and get it passed.
Mm-hmm. I agree. When we were out campaigning, one of the things that I heard from a lot of people was, I wish that you could work better together. And it wasn't just between the House and the Senate, it was between Republicans and Democrats. And I think we showed people, the people of the state of New Hampshire, that it can be done. But leadership is key. You've got to have people that are willing to sit down with people that might not necessarily agree with them to come up with a consensus and work towards what you can agree on. And I think that's one of the key factors in getting that budget passed the way that it happened. It was unheard of. There was no committee of conference. Mm-hmm. And that's usually where things can get very, very contentious. But it just went right through because everyone had worked together for quite a while in order for that to happen.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal accomplishment, and not everybody got what they wanted. I know as House Republicans, we didn't get everything we wanted. The House Democrats didn't get everything they wanted, and I don't think the Senate got everything it wanted. But we all got enough and realized that it would be hurting the state of New Hampshire tremendously if we didn't pass a budget. Mm-hmm. And so we got together and we made the compromises that we need to make, and we did pass it. And it was, I think, a phenomenal accomplishment. What do you see coming up this coming session, which is actually next year? I know you just had your bill filing, didn't you?
Right, our bill filing period opened yesterday.
Oh, okay.
What I see is a lot of bills and a lot of work, which is normal. We'll take, the Senate will probably file at least 200 bills, and we will go through the process of the public hearings and voting. And while you're doing the same thing, and then we'll get to crossover, and you'll send them to us, and we'll just keep working. It's the norm. It's what we do. And unfortunately, unless our constituents are there with us all the time and watching us on YouTube, they just really don't know the amount of work that goes into being a state representative or a state senator. But we're going to work. That's what I see.
Well, I hate to tell you this, Sherman, but there has been 790 bills filed in the House.
I'm aware. I know.
Not all of those will obviously come across to you, but that is an exceptionally high number for the second year of the session. And we've had to move out our finishing date, and we wanted to conclude at the end of May, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. We have to move it out because we're just not going to be able to get the work done if we try and get out of there on May 30th.
Oh, I'm well aware. I've got my list. I've got a list of all the LSRs that have been filed in the House, so I already have some sort of an idea. I've talked with the chairs of the various committees in the Senate. They have now gotten those same bills and said, we've got to be prepared for this. So we'll be prepared, Mr. Speaker, for what you send us. Don't worry about the Senate. We got it covered.
Sharon, you represent Londonderry, Auburn, and Hudson, and so can you relate a little bit to your district's interest in terms of the bills that you've seen coming up? And I know water is prime concern here in Londonderry for sure. Are there any others that affect your district that you'll be concentrating on?
Well, there's each community is different, but there's a lot of commonalities. They all want good schools for their children. They want a clean environment, to include water. As you know, Auburn is in the district, and we have Lake Massabesic. It is the water supply for the city of Manchester, and increasingly for other towns around the state. But Massabesic is also a recreational area. People can boat on the lake. There's all kinds of walking trails, biking trails. So people are concerned about those in the town of Auburn. I think we're all concerned about the price of energy and electricity. That's a huge issue. Hudson, again, they actually border with Massachusetts. So a lot of them are concerned about their roads. But we all are. We're all concerned about our roads, the condition of our roads. And so there's a lot of commonality between each district, and that's what I focus on. If there's an issue that comes up that is unique to one community, I go ahead and tackle that. In fact, I'm working on an issue for Hudson right now. But there's just so much in common within the district. So it's just working on those common issues.
Sharon, by the way, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm honored to share the stage with you. I'd like to talk about a couple of the topical things that are facing Londonderry. One of them, you already touched on it, the water issues, but just wanted to ask your point of view as to how you see things progressing with water, with the PFAS contamination issue coming from Merrimack, St. Cobain over there, and also any insights as to the Department of Transportation's efforts with roads, especially with 4A coming online in the next several months. What's your point of view, and what kind of interaction have maybe from your position in the Senate have you had on those couple of issues?
Well, I'll talk about 4A first. Senator Birdsell, who represents the town of Derry, the two of us got together, we filed legislation to really ramp this whole process up, and it was passed, and we're really seeing it come to fruition. They're ahead of schedule, so I think that this is going to be open sooner. I've also found out, and I've had meetings with representatives from the YMCA, that on the other side of the highway going into Derry, they're going to be building a new facility, providing more services for the people of this area, not only services for the children, but they're also going to be opening a daycare center, which is something that we really need. So I want to thank them for recognizing that that is a need within our community. So they're working with that as well. So we're going to see 4A open earlier than what they've projected, which is great. They're making great progress. If you travel Route 93, either north or south, so you see it. And as a citizen of Londonderry, we can really see it. We remember what it was like. I was there when they put the shovel in the ground, and I'm really glad that it's progressing, and it's progressing well. I forgot. Oh,
The
water.
Yeah.
I filed legislation in the fall that brought over $9 million through the budget to the town of Londonderry to connect us with Pennachuck. That is going to come through, I think, a small part of Nashua, through Litchfield into North Londonderry. That, of course, is passed. So I attended Senator Morse's campaign kickoff. He's running for governor. And he told me that he had met with some town officials here in town. They're going to be bringing more money, over $20 million, to bring water, I believe, down High Range Road.
It's High Range Road, yes.
Yeah, so we are working on this project. We're bringing that resource to assure that our constituents are getting clean water. So it is something that is a high priority. A lot of our constituents are on bottled water and get water delivered. I do. So this is a real concern. We've got to be able to ensure that people have clean water. And this was a high priority as I went around the district during the last election, and this was probably one of the top 3 issues that people were concerned about the most. So I made the commitment that I would work on it. We brought $9 million. There's another over $20 million coming. So
This is something that I have been working on with former Senator Morse and the commission that Representative Bill Boyd runs. And I've had numerous conversations with Senator Morse and the town officials. We're hoping to get roughly that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's still a lot more to go, because I think they estimate that the problems we have in town is somewhere around the $200 million range.
yes.
And so it's not something that, obviously there's enough money out there to do that, but I can assure the citizens of Londonderry we're doing everything in our possibly that we can do as your representatives to try and fix this problem and get as much money as we can so that we can fix the problem as quickly as possible. But it's a monumental project.
Yeah, it is. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, why can't we get the water from Massabesic? It's closer. But the problem is the PFAS contamination has been so widespread that other communities are now drawing off of Massabesic, and to bring that water to Londonderry, it would have been, it just would not
Some
have
of
worked.
some of it does come from Massabesic.
Right.
In North Londonderry, I know on Old Derry Road, if you hook up, it comes from Massabesic.
Right.
I don't know how far
to do
down.
all of Londonderry.
Right, to do all of
would've
Londonderry would have
overwhelmed
been,
the water
it wouldn't
supply.
work. Yeah.
Right. So you're right, Sherm, you're exactly right. We are all working hard. Doug works on science and technology, and we need that. Tom, his expertise as a former town council. I think we've got a great group of people that are working to address one of the most important issues for our community.
Well, one of the things that we've done, it's kind of in the past, but people of Londonderry are still benefiting from it, and that is the council, the local town council, when I was on it, initiated work with the environmental services at the state to work with St. Cobain and bringing in bottled water temporarily for the citizens of Londonderry that were impacted, and also grants that are allowing Londonderry residents to put in reverse osmosis systems in their homes as a point of at a point of use to filter out bad water, at least temporarily, and be paid for by this combination of the state and the town, which has helped. It's not a permanent solution by any stretch, but it helps raise the safety level of the water that's being consumed. That we know this PFAS is, I'll just say it's really bad stuff. Some people call it permanent.
Forever chemical.
Forever chemical, right?
Yeah.
What really got my attention, it was scary, is the fact that DES warned us that this type of chemical passes from the mother to the baby when breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And it's something that the human body doesn't filter out for the baby, so it puts our youngest folks at risk, and that's important to work at. I think, and I know the people of Londonderry really appreciate what the Senate's been doing with your help, Sharon, to get this under control.
I think one of the things that the citizens got to realize is that this just isn't a Londonderry issue, because PFAS, how it was explained to me, it isn't from groundwater so much, but it's airborne.
Right.
So it contaminates everything, not just not just the groundwater itself, but all the communities surrounding us, Merrimack, and all the communities surrounding Merrimack are under the same problems we are. So we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to fix all the communities that have water, contaminated water. And unfortunately, there isn't that kind of pot of money out there that we can just go ahead and say fix everything. So it's something that we're going to have to work on gradually. But let me assure the citizens we're doing everything we can to move it forward as quickly as possible.
One of the things that we grappled with in our committee also, I think we were, although this has been around for a long time, I think it began to come to light a few years ago when we passed legislation from our committee involving the amount in the air, because my committee deals with air pollution versus the Recreation Committee deals with water pollution. And so we were concerned about the parts per million in the air, and we passed legislation to reduce that per DES request. We were not aware at the time, until only about a year or two later, about the fact that the particles in the air were settling into the ground and then getting into our water stream. That raised a lot of issues at the time, because PFAS, the group of PFAS chemicals, which there's over 20 of them, but there's 5 particular, they're everywhere. They're in your clothing. They're in your cookware.
Yep.
So the real issue becomes just what is a safe amount, and there are people that would say 0. I don't think we'll ever get there. So, and there are instruments that are very hard to read past a certain area. So what is a safe amount, parts per million? And we passed some legislation earlier that reduced it really, really low. But I don't believe we can ever get to 0, but we can get to a point where it's manageable. But the cleaning up of the water, I think right now is paramount, because it's there and it travels around underground.
Yeah.
And as I believe the figure is, in Londonderry alone, 80% of our water comes from wells. So it's not something you're going to be able to fix right away. I mean, I believe there's at least 5 or 7 bills alone in the House this year that all involve PFAS.
And we've got a lot more filed.
A lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot more. In
A
fact,
lot more filed.
I'm filing a bill on the Senate side that deals with firefighter cancer screening. We've learned that every time that a firefighter suits up, their clothing that they're required to wear is saturated with PFAS.
Right.
And this is all part of a program that we've put together, and we're starting, and this is another piece of it. And they came to me and asked me to sponsor it. So I think we do have the responsibility. These people work for us to protect us. And if the equipment and the clothing they're required to wear is saturated with this chemical, we have a duty and an obligation to address their healthcare issues if something happens.
I think the firefighting foam that they use is.
We did something about that a few years ago, but I'm talking about the actual, the clothing that they have to wear when they go to fight a fire, that they're required to suit up in every time that alarm goes off. So we have to do a better job, and we have been, and this is just another part of it. So I'll be filing that. I think it's getting filed today, so we
Okay.
continue to work on it in a variety of different ways.
Well, I think unfortunately, we were unaware of how bad it was until a few years ago,
Yep.
in that it was airborne, not just, something that was dumped into the ground and slipped into a stream or two. And and this has been going on for, decades. And so the ability for us to just snap our fingers and fix it, it's just not possible. It's gonna take time, and it's gonna take a lot of money, but it's something that we're all concerned about, and we're all working on doing everything we can to make sure that happens. Well, I see we've got about 2 minutes left, Sharon, so anything else you'd like to bring up?
Just another topic. Again, it's campaigning last year. Spoke to a lot of people. They wanted us to really focus on civics education for our children. They felt that it was important. So I filed a bill. It is now law. Civics is a required subject that's going to have to be taught. And right now I'm working on a committee that is looking at what that is going to look like. And I've gotten feedback from our community. They're very appreciative. They're very thankful that their kids are now going to learn how government works and how they can access government. So I'm very happy that that passed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we'll keep working at it.
Yeah, that is something that I think will benefit the kids in the school as to how our government works.
Right.
And what we actually do, and I think that's a tremendous thing.
Sure.
It should have been done years ago.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is many people just don't know how to access the system. We have just about everything we do is open and transparent. Things
Right.
are recorded. There's video now. So if there was a piece of legislation that you were interested in, but you couldn't get to Concord, you can now go and look at it on YouTube. You can look at the public hearing. You can see what people had to say about it. Even the executive sessions are recorded and put out there for people to see, so they can hear the discussion amongst the representatives and the senators.
And people can sign up to testify if they want themselves, right?
We did that when we were had COVID and we weren't actually meeting. They can actually sign up online, whether they're in support of or against something, but for them to actually testify, they're not allowed to do that anymore. You have to.
We
Yeah.
don't allow the testifying.
Yeah, we don't allow it either.
But everything is streamed from all the committees and to move forward. If you have any 30 seconds to close, Sharon, we're out of time.
Okay, all right. Well, just thank the citizens of Londonderry again for electing me as your senator. It's an honor to be there and represent you in Concord. And please keep those comments, those emails coming. Let me know things that are important to you. Any suggestions? I'd love to meet with people. If you want to sit and have a conversation, just send me an email. We'll see what we can work out. I know people are really busy with either working or their lives outside of working, but we can always make something work. So I'm proud to represent you, and I love doing the work.
Well, I want to thank everybody for watching, and stay tuned for our next conversations in Concord. So thank you, Sharon, for coming in and speaking to us, and hopefully we can get you back here in the future.
I'd love to come back.
And, I'm not sure when our next date is going to be, but stay tuned, and we will have another session with another guest at sometime in the very near future. Thank you all.
preceding program was produced by Londonderry residents. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily the views and opinions of the LACTV staff or its volunteers and should not be considered an endorsement by CTV 20 or its staff and volunteers.